Spring Hill Jack. I saw those two words in the paper this morning, and my God, how they take me back. All that was 8 years ago, almost to the day. Once while it was going on, I saw myself on nationwide TV, the Walter Cronkite Report, just a hurrying face in the general background behind the reporter, but my folks picked me out right away. They called it long distance. My dad wanted my analysis of the situation. He was all bluff and hearty and man to man. My mother just wanted me to come home. But I didn't want to come home. I was enchanted. Enchanted by the dark and mist-blowing strawberry spring and by the 10 shadows of violent death that walked through it on those nights 8 years ago. The shadow of Spring Hill Jack. In New England, they called it a strawberry spring. No one knows why. It's just a phrase the old-timers use. They say it happens once every 8 to 10 years. What happened at Ohio University Teachers College that particular strawberry spring? There may be a cycle for that too, but if anyone has figured it out, they have never said. At Ohio University, the strawberry spring began on March 16, 2008. The coldest winter in 20 years broke on that day. It rained, and you could smell the sea 20 miles west of the beaches. The snow, which had been 35 inches deep in places, began to melt, and the campus walks rushed with slush. The winter carnival snow sculptures, which had been kept sharp and clear-cut for 2 months by the sub-zero temperatures, at last began to sag and slouch. The caricature of Lyndon Johnson in front of the Temp fraternity house cried melted tears. The dove in front of Morton Hall lost its frozen feathers, and plywood skeleton showed sadly through its places. And when night came, the fog came with it, moving silently and white along the narrow college avenues and streets. The pines on the walls poked through it like counting fingers, and it drifted slow as cigarette smoke under the little bridge down by the Civil War cannons. It made things seem out of joint, strange, and magical. The unwary traveler girl on campus, she was ugly but cute. She had been a vivacious girl who talked little and smiled seldom. She had been pregnant, and she had leukemia. She was a lesbian who had murdered by her boyfriend. It was strawberry spring, and on the morning of 17th of March, we all knew Katie Lindrickson.
Jess,
What?
they found out who did it.
Did what?
Who killed Katie? It was her boyfriend Dylan.
What?
Can't you believe it?
I guess.
Alright, well, I think I'm gonna go to class now.
Alright, bye.
It was strawberry spring, and no one walked by themselves through the half-academical, half-fantastical campus at night. The fog had come again, smelling of the sea, quiet and deep. Around 9 o'clock, my roommate burst into my room. It was in the papers the next day. There was a picture of Dylan, probably a high school graduation picture, and it showed a rather sad-looking boy with an olive complexion and dark eyes. The boy had not yet confessed, but the evidence against him was strong. He and Katie had argued a great deal in the last month or so and had broken up the week before. Dylan's roommate said he had been distant lately, and in a footlocker under his bed, police had found a 7-inch hunting knife from L.L. Bean's and a picture of the girl that had apparently been cut up with a pair of scissors. The fog came again that night, not on Little Cat's feet, but in the improper silent sprawl. I walked that night. I had a headache, and I walked for some air, smelling the wet, misty smell of the spring that was slowly wiping away the reluctant snow, leaving lifeless patches of last year's grass bare and uncovered, like the head of the sighing old grandmother. For me, that was one of the most beautiful nights I can remember. The people I passed under the haloed street lights were murmuring shadows, and all of them seemed to be lovers, walking with hands and eyes linked. The melting snow dripped and ran, and from every dark storm drain, the sound of the sea drifted up, a dark winter sea now strong. I walked until nearly midnight, until I was thoroughly mildewed, and I passed many shadows, heard many footfalls, clicking dreamingly off down the windy paths. Who is it to say that one of those shadows was not the man or the thing that came to be known as Spring Hill Jack? Not I, for I passed many shadows, but in the fog I saw no faces.
Hello?
Jess, he got another one. They had to let Dylan go.
What?
He was sitting in jail when it happened.
When what happened?
The guy killed someone else, and now they're hunting all over for it.
For what? What's going
Her
on?
head. Whoever killed her took her head.
We all knew Molly Scoos. She had been the first runner-up in the Miss Ohio University pageant the year before, her talent performance consisting of twirling a flaming baton to the tune of Hey, Look Me Over. She was brainy, too. Until the time of her death, she had been editor of the New School paper, a member of the Students' Dramatic Society, and president of the National Service Sorority. In a hot, fierce bubblings of my freshman youth, I had submitted a column idea to the paper and asked for a date, and turned down on both counts. And now she was dead. Worse than dead. I walked to my afternoon classes like everyone else, nodding to people I knew and saying hi with a little more force than usual, as if that would make up for the close way I studied their faces, which was the same way they were studying mine. There was some dark among us, as dark as the paths which twisted across the school, as dark as the hulking Civil War cannons seen through a drifting membrane of fog. We looked into each other's faces and tried to read the darkness behind one of them. The time the police arrested no one. The Blue Beetles patrolled the campus on the foggy spring nights of the 18th, 19th, and 20th, and spotlights stabbed in the dark nooks and crannies with erotic eagerness. The administration imposed a mandatory 9 o'clock curfew. A couple discovered necking in the landscape bushes north of the Tate Alum Building were taken to the Ohio University police station and grilled for 3 hours. The press, always fickling, ignored the strong resemblance our murders had to Jack the Ripper, all the way back from 1819. Molly had been found on a soggy path of ground some 12 feet from the nearest sidewalk, and yet there were no footprints, not even her own. An enterprising Ohio newsman with a passion for the killer, Spring Hill Jack, after the infamous Dr. John Hawkins of Bristol, who did 5 of his wives to death with an odd pharmaceutical knickknacks. And the name, probably because of the soggy yet unmarked ground. The police announced that they were salting plain-clothes detectives, men and women, about, and took half the police cars off duty. That night, Rob Lambert was killed. 6 police cars and 17 plain-clothed men, 8 of them were women, imported all the way from Boston, patrolled the campus. But Spring Hill Jack killed him just the same, going unerringly from one of our own. The false Spring, the lying Spring, aided and abetted him. He killed him and left him propped behind the wheel of his 1964 Dodge to be found the next morning, and they found part of him in the back seat and part of him in the trunk. And written in blood on the windshield, this time fact instead of rumor, were 2 words: ha ha. The campus went slightly mad after that. All of us and none of us had known Rob Lambert. The school was closed until things were safe again. There is little left to tell. The police, as prone to hysteria as any of us, and driven against the wall, arrested an innocent homosexual graduate student named Hanson Gray, who claimed he could not remember where he spent several of the lethal evenings. They charged him, arraigned him, and let him go to scamper hurriedly against the Ohio town after the last unspeakable night of Strawberry Spring, when Rob Lambert was slaughtered on the mall. By April, things quieted down, and we never heard of things from him again. That was the year I graduated, and the next year was when I got married. A good job in a local publishing house as well. Then, today's paper. Of course I knew it was here. I knew it yesterday morning when I got up and heard the mysterious sound of snow melt running down the gutters and smell of salt tang from the ocean from our front porch, 9 miles from the nearest beach. I saw Strawberry Spring had come again when I started home from work last night and had to turn on my headlights against the mist that had already begun to creep out of the fields and hollows, blurring the lines of the buildings and putting fairly hollows around the street lamps. This morning's paper says a man was killed on the Ohio University campus near the Civil War cannons. He was killed last night and found in a melting snowbank. He was not all there. My husband is upset. He wants to know where I was last night. I can't tell him because I don't remember. I remember starting home from work, and I remember putting my headlights on to search my way through the lovely creeping fog, but that's all I remember. I've been thinking about that foggy night when I had a headache and walked for air and passed all the lovely shadows without shape or substance. And I've been thinking about the trunk of my car. Such an ugly word, trunk. And wondering why in the world I should be afraid to open it. I can hear my husband as I write this in the next room crying. He thinks I was with another man last night. Oh my dear God, I think so too.